Bible in the book of Leviticus in chapter 23. It is recorded where God gave the Jews 7 primary feasts. 7 feasts of celebration. The word feast literally means, the Hebrew word means appointed times. And so the feasts are appointed times where the Jews come together and they celebrate the things that God has done in their lives over the hundreds and thousands of years of their history. These, again, are 7 primary feasts that are listed there in Leviticus 23. And very quickly, they are Passover, unleavened bread, the Feast of First Fruits, the Feast of Pentecost, which make up the 4 spring feasts. And then there are the fall feast, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. And so again, these are celebrations where the Jewish people come together and they celebrate and they remember the goodness of God. Well, there's one primary feast, what I consider a very primary feast, and really all the other feasts spin off of this particular one feast, and that is the Feast of Passover. The Feast of Passover is the most ancient celebrated feast, being celebrated over 3,500 years by the Jewish people, a very special time of the year, and that is the celebration of Passover. And so a little bit about Passover, a little bit about that particular celebration. It's spoken of in the book of Exodus. God gave special instructions about this very celebration, and just like with all the other feasts, this celebration was a time to remember God. As I said, it's a time that the Jews would celebrate God. They would remember certain things about God. Well, with the Passover, what they would remember about God was His faithfulness and His care in their lives, because the celebration of Passover is a celebration of the exodus of the Jewish people as they came out of Egypt, as they were being delivered out of bondage, as they were being freed from slavery. So that's very important to remember because of something else I'm going to tell you about here in just a moment. But they have celebrated Passover, as I said, for over 3,500 years, always remembering the time that their deliverer, Moses, took them out of bondage, out of the hands of the Egyptians, and led them into the promised land. So Passover, that spring feast, is a celebration by the Jews of that very event. Passing or moving out of the land of Egypt into the promised land. So again, they remember the faithfulness of God, the care of God as they celebrate Passover. Also, they remembered again how God delivered them out of Egypt. They also remember how God gave them the law. Eventually, as they go into the wilderness, one of the very first things that they did was they received the law. That is a covenant. That is a marking of covenant. So it is a time to remember the covenant. They also remember, because remember, that is a purpose for the feast, is so that they could remember God and remember how He's been active in their lives. They remember how God accompanied them in the wilderness. And also, lastly, how He provided for them in the wilderness. So once again, Passover, that spring feast, is a huge feast in the life of the Jewish people. This is how it went. God gave instruction to the children of Israel in the book of Exodus. I believe it is chapter 6. He gave them instruction, and it's also mentioned in chapter 8. He gave them the instructions. On the night of Passover, I want you to kill the fatted lamb. They would have selected a lamb prior. And I want you to take the blood and take the hyssop branch, which is a type of a plant, dip it in the blood that's in the basin. The blood would have come off of the little lamb. Dip it in the blood and apply it to the doorpost and across the top of your door, your place of dwelling. And He told the Jews, you stay inside and do not come out on this particular night. Now, this was the last of the 10 plagues that He brought on Egypt, as He had gone to Pharaoh through Moses many times, 9 different times before this, saying, let my people go. let them go. And he sent 9 other plagues, and you can read about them in the Bible. 9 other plagues trying to tell Pharaoh, bringing judgment on Pharaoh for not letting the children of Israel go. Let my people go. The Bible says that God said, let my people go so that they may serve me. Other translations say, so that they may worship me. And Pharaoh refused every time. So this was the final plague. On this night, the night of what is known as Passover, the death angel would come and would take the life of every firstborn as a final judgment against Pharaoh for his disobedience and his reluctance to let the children of Israel go at God's command. But God said to the Hebrew children, if you will apply the blood to your house, when the death angel comes through, I will pass over your house. And the death angel will pass over your house, and no one in your house will be killed. And so the Hebrew children did this on the night of the very first, and really the original Passover. That little lamb, its life was taken, its blood was shed, gathered into a basin. They took the hyssop branch, dipped it into the basin, gathered the blood, and applied it to the door of their homes, so that when the death angel came that night, seeing the blood applied, the death angel would pass over.